starting your tubing priming, ensure that your stop sign is facing out to make sure that nobody comes into the room when you're priming your fluids, and close your patient's door.
Make sure everyone in the room is wearing a mask and turn off the fan if your patient has one at their bedside. Now we're going to discuss how to prime fluids for your patient's IV line. Now this setup will look slightly different depending on what specific fluids and medications that your patient has running. But overall, the general process of priming is pretty much the same no matter what you're running through. So I've obtained a couple of different supplies. I have my sterile drape here that I'll put down on my Mayo stand. I've got some large bore IV tubing here. This is going to connect up to my my bag of, we'll say it's D10. Anytime you're running fluids from a bag, so if it's D10, if it's TPN, if it's lipids, you'll always want to grab the large bore tubing here. I have a piece of gauze, and this is just to put down on my drape to prevent me from getting puddles of fluid and getting a sticky mess, which is never fun. I'm going to pretend that my patient has IV antibiotics. So I grabbed this medication line here. I grabbed a TriFuse. It's TriFuse because there are 3 ports to put things. Again, this kind of depends on what your patient's individual needs are. We also have bifuses available. But for today, I'm going to run my D10, I'm going to run my medication line, and then I'm going to have an open port just in case they need it for something. I've also grabbed a filter here. Anytime we're running anything through this large bore infusion tubing from a bag, so this would be your TPNs or D10s, we need to have it filtered. The only exception is if you were running this line here for lipids and you had lipids, a spiked bag, you had them run through the line, I would not put a filter on that specific line for my lipids because it would become clogged and not so good. So that's currently not our policy at this point to filter our lipids. I've also grabbed 2 microclaves. One of these is going to go on the end of my med line. The other one is going to go on the end of my TriFuse, and this is what's actually going to connect into my patient's line. It's our policy that we need to have a microclave at the end of the line unless your patient has an umbilical line. So everything except for UVCs and UACs from a central line standpoint need to have a microclave at the end. And then I've also grabbed 2 non-sterile saline flushes. Now these are from my education stock, so they're not wrapped, but in real life these would still be brand new, wrapped up in their plastic. All right, so let's get started.